Welcome to Six Sigma DMAIC. Today we'll be addressing one of the most important tools that you will come across if you intend to do any of a DMAIC methodology study on any subject or issue or concern you have within your organization. You have to understand, when you decided to embark on any kind of issue or concern that's due that there is an issue actually has been risen that affected either an entity or a company or a process, and you're trying to find a solution for it. So who's the best one to deliver this information to you? It's the customer, the one who's impacted by it. That's what we call it, the voice of the customer, because from there you can build your scope and your project ideas, and then you will work around it to achieve the intended goals. So you have to understand the voice of your customers is very important, because there you will capture customer need, preference and expectation, and this is essential for you in order to align your process improvement that you are intending to do, an effort with your customer requirement. Example will be, let's say there is a software company wants to conduct an interview and survey. Why? To gather voice of the customer data and user experience, which will lead that company to develop a user-friendly software application based on that voice of the customer. Now, what's the role of voice in the customer in defined phase? In the defined phase, you set the project goals, objective based on that customer need, and then that voice of the customer will drive that definition, of the project scope and objective you intend to achieve. Example, a retail chain uses voice of the customer, to define project goals for improving customer service quality, to reduce waiting time and checkout. Now comes the point that you're gonna collect that voice of the customer. The techniques will be, you either use a survey, or you use an interview, or you use a focus group, or you use an observation. All these tools will enable you, to collect that voice of the customer. It is important to select appropriate data, based, data method. So all these methods here, it is very important, to select the one that fits your organization based on your preference and budget. You don't want to stretch yourself too much, but you don't want to cut yourself short. And now, example would be like a hotel wants to collect voice of the customer through online survey and comments card. So because this way they can gather customer feedback, their experience, their preference, and that's an easy way to collect the data without having to, have a lot of expenditure involved in it. Then you have to analyze that data, the voice of the customer. How you analyze it? This way you can identify patterns, trend, common theme. From that you gain an insight to your project need, which will help you to prioritize improvement and initiative accordingly. Example, an e-commerce company, wants to improve their platform. What they're gonna do? From the customer review, they will identify area of improvement in website usability and production, section. Then you need to translate that voice of the customer to CTQ. CTQ stands for critical to quality, because they have to be quantitative so you can really measure them. You will generate key characteristic of a process that impact customer satisfaction, and then it's an importance for prioritizing CTQ based on how customer impacted by each issue. And a way, it's very important to address that. An example will be telecommunication company identify CTQ such as call quality and rework reliability based on voice of the customer. This will guide them to improve and have an improvement efforts in their network infrastructure based on that voice of the customer and what exactly the customer is concerned about. So now you have to incorporate voice of the customer in the measure phase. How is that happen? Now you will define the measurable metrics, because you have to measure something, it has to be a value, you measure it, and you will create a KPI based on that voice of the customer. Those metrics will help you assess current performance of the event or against customer expectation. Example, let's say a healthcare provider measure patient satisfaction based on voice of the customer data to evaluate the effectiveness of care delivered, and this way they can identify areas of improvement. Now you have to analyze, and involve this voice of the customer in the analyze phase. There you will identify the root causes that caused that issue to happen in the first place, that made the customer get impacted and dissatisfied. And this voice of the customer data analyze will guide you to prioritization of improvement opportunity. Example, an airline company wants to identify delay in flight as a major source of customer complaint. That will lead them to new initiative to improve on-time performance. Now it comes time you have to implement changes based on that voice of the customer in the improve phase. You will implement changes based on the voice of the customer inside. You will focus on addressing and identifying improvement opportunity. Example, financial institution implement self-service kiosk, for example, based on the voice of the customer preference for convenient banking option. Now you have done that. Now you need to monitor. So where the voice of the customer will be involved here. To monitor the satisfaction in the control phase of your customer. You monitor ongoing performance and customer satisfaction, and then you have a continuous feedback and improvement, so whenever you get a feedback from a customer, you do an improvement one step at a time till you reach that point of customer satisfaction. An example, let's say you have a restaurant chain and you monitor customer satisfaction score, an online review to ensure consistency in service quality and addresses any issue promptly. Conclusion will be, you will be integrating the voice of the customer through DMAIC is crucial for driving customer-centric process improvement, and then you will encourage the staff to apply voice of the customer principle project in order to achieve measurable result. Now we'll have a real-world example how we use the voice of the customer in order to improve a call center efficiency. Let's start with the define phase. What exactly we'll be doing in the define phase? We'll identify first the long waiting time and high call abandonment rate as a key issue. So those are our metrics affecting the customer satisfaction. Then the voice of the customer, what will reveal to us customer frustration, with waiting time and lack of resolution on initial cost. Then that will be within the define phase. On the measure phase, now the time comes to start, establish key performance metrics based on voice of the customer, because those metrics, the one that will measure, as you can see from before, you have an issue of long waiting or abandonment of calls. Then you will have the average wait time. You need to, that's one of your metrics. Then first call resolution rate, what's the rate? Like the first call, you get an answer rather than wait. Is it 50%, 60%, 80%? the customer satisfaction score. You rate the customer satisfaction. You ask him, how much you rate me, for example, from 1 till 10 while you're making the call with the customer. And then comes the measured current performance against voice of the customer expectation. Now comes, after you get all this information, now you will analyze that will be on the analyze phase. What's going to be there? You will analyze voice of the customer data to identify root cause. Insufficient staffing could be the issue during peak hours, or ineffective call routing system that you have. Maybe your system is backwards. Then you will identify opportunity for improvement. Here comes the important part. You will implement skill based on routing system. Like in the peak routing system, you will have the people with all the qualification available there rather than rookies they just started. Then you will provide additional training for agents who are rookies in order to improve their skills. Then comes the improve phase. Now here you implement changes based on the voice of the customer inside. Skill based routing to direct call appropriately. You will have introduction of self-service option to reduce call volume, so the customer can really when he calls, he will have himself to contact either pressing 1 or 2 or 3 to reach the answer he wants. Then you will enhance training program for agent. And then comes the control phase, because after you implement all that stuff, now you need to make sure it's consistent. It will stay consistent like that. Now comes the control phase. In the control phase, you will monitor key performance metrics and voice data continuously. Remember the metric data you just collected: waiting time, first call answering, and all that, customer satisfaction score. All those are metrics. You will ensure sustainability of improvement over time. Okay, then you will use customer feedback to refine the process even further. Maybe you can really make the process more improved. What the benefit you will gain? You will gain significant reduction in average waiting time in that real world problems. You will increase in first time resolution rate. You will decrease call abandonment rate, and then you will have positive impact on overall customer experience. So in the conclusion, we can say, integrating voice of the customer throughout DMAIC led to a tangible improvement in call center efficiency, and encouragement for applying similar methodology to address process improvement challenges in other contexts. I hope this was a good introduction to voice of the customer that make you able to understand why it is an important skill that you need to be equipped with when you start the DMAIC project within the Six Sigma.